Oh my god. What is that?
Or are they
This
something
thing?
like
Yeah.
past
It's just a bunch of
midnight
spheres.
Yeah, we got like a 5. Hold on, wait a second. We got like a 4 a.m. submission, a 3:30 a.m. submission. Okay.
4:02 a.m.
How early
Yep.
does it go?
How early does it go?
Like
Or how late? We have people submitting the entire way through.
5:30.
5 a.m., 5:30 a.m.
Oh my god, the Jake. Oh no, the nose.
The nose? What the?
Jake's nose.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Is it like a cloth nose?
That's automatic weight is what that is.
Wow.
Those are tied to the arms for some reason.
Oh.
It's directly on
Wow.
my arm. No. I see how this fight works.
I had some
I thought I should
jump
jump
on. Because of the ones I tried to download had like bones directly to like planes
Yeah.
instead of objects.
This is a Noel, right?
Yeah, the Undertale and Delta are strong.
I thought
Yes.
No, you couldn't. You can't nose stuff like that.
Oops. Gosh.
Anyway,
Fat Puss in Boots.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Where did they even find that? What is that from?
I don't know. I wonder where his hat went.
I want to know.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Sometimes I can't tell which one is the attack, and which one is the victory.
I think they're all.
Yeah. Where'd my mouse go? Oh, there it is.
I love that people are using like, camera animation to go with it.
Yeah. Well, that was optional on pretty much every
Yeah.
problem. So
That's like the last thing I just said to make sense. I mean, like animating the camera is the best way to make your animation.
look at this. I think this is supposed to be an attack, like a doo doo doo. But it looks like the dog is like rolling over for a belly rub or something.
Yeah. It depends on how much of the movie you're attributing to the camera and how much you're attributing to it
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, that's
All
one
the
thing.
way.
Like next semester, there's going to be a requirement to like make a floor
Yeah.
because it's very hard to tell.
It helps with
Often.
the snow angle.
Yeah.
It's the same person they do. Oh, the low polyester! That's so cute!
Yeah.
Oh my god, the eyes. Alex the Lion, of course.
I played this game
The
a long
original
time ago.
Madagascar, PS2,
Yeah,
PS3.
that's right.
Oh, that's not
Characters like
really hard to
fall to their
do.
knees.
Spines. and stuff like that.
actually,
Banana Man.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you have characters like fall to their knees, do you have to like edit the root bone as well to like move them down, or
The
what?
best way to do that would be IK.
Yeah, that kind of.
Just move the knee, hit at targets.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Pika pig.
It almost looks like some of the animations of like
You gotta stop him from kissing.
as a head attack. Or Deltarune.
This looks like it's straight out of like one of my old PC
Yeah.
games. I like this a lot.
Yeah. Or just like Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the Ori! It's so cute.
Amazing.
Mega Chestnut. That was quick. It looks so good too.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Just a really solid low poly. Oh my god.
that's great.
So happy.
This can just be the whole lecture. Oh. Oh. We're losing control.
Are you letting
Suzanne.
them editing, or are they just?
What's that?
Is it like allowed to be edited, or like that's how it's written with camera?
I don't really. The question doesn't go over editing, video editing, or anything like that. Nice.
Meditates. Oh my god, the separately rigged pad.
Yeah. Wow! Stabbed in the back. Oh my gosh!
Like his own sword.
Wow.
Oh wait, that's through his head. And so
Oh
that's interesting.
yeah.
That's interesting. supposed to be Baldy.
Baldi's Basics?
It's like bright color scheme.
Maybe. It's a short one.
You're essentially playing.
Can't even tell what the object is at the end. This looks really good.
Yeah.
This is just Wario with a shovel.
I don't know how.
This looks like an Overwatch animation, Mercy or something.
Yeah. That's great. Just
Oh yeah.
Oh, the Isaac! All of them were just crying.
Is his head falling off? Oh no!
That's gonna be the death.
Oh. So sad.
It's maybe the attack. What's that?
I don't know. 30 seconds. That's a long one.
Is there a goal to like drive the car through the city?
Yeah, you have to animate the car from one end of the city to the other.
Okay.
So yeah, this looks great. Good camera.
Yeah.
Very dramatic.
Sonic. What is? I love this character design. I don't know what it is, but it's great.
Oh, look at the stretch. Boink, boink,
Oh yeah.
boink. Nice. Looks great.
What hour was that? Submitted?
This is
That was
afternoon. Oh, this is 2 minutes. 2 minutes ago. Freddy,
Oh my god.
Pizza Drive. All right, not too bad, huh? Not too bad at all. Jeez. Okay. Okay, ladies, gentlemen, everyone. Welcome to another week of EECS 298. And my goodness, you have done some excellent work this past week. You did a lot of excellent work, like last night at like 5 a.m. Okay, Sundays are always really strange for me. At 5 o'clock, I come here to do an hour of office hours. No one is here. Like maybe I think 2 people came to my office hours, and then I go home and I look on the Google Doc and I can see like 20 people are grinding the homework. Okay, so this is just a reminder. I have office hours every Sunday at 5 o'clock right here, and you can join me online if you want to, if you run into any problems. But make use of those office hours. Okay, we can often save you quite a little bit of time. Not always, but often we can. Or we can kind of help explain what's going on in your file, which will speed you up dramatically as you move through an assignment, okay? But as you kind of saw as we went through those animations, like, wow, like all of these are really impressive, okay? Like what you've learned to do in the small amount of time you've had. Like you've only had like, 5 or 6 weeks? That's not a lot of time to get all the way to animating your own characters. So all of what you've done is impressive. Some of the animations I saw in here were like, wow, those are crazy good. Those are like definitely commercial indie grade animations. My advice to you is this. If you're having fun, yeah, continue to put in all that time, but be careful about how much time you're putting in, okay? Number one, you've got a busy schedule, I'm sure, so be careful about dumping too much time in. You don't want to compromise your other classes. I appreciate you putting so much time into my class. Please take care of your other classes as well. And number two, dumping copious amounts of time in, actually, it's going to make you better, but that's not the end goal, right? So over time, we want quality to go up. We want time spent to go down. So as you complete these projects, don't just think about the final quality. Think about, were there any shortcuts I missed? Were there any tools I could have used, right? Was there anything I could have been thinking about to move, just like 10% faster next time? Okay? Because when you look out at the industry, when you look at the pro animators who are getting hired, even in the tough job market, it's those animators, it's those artists who are very, very good at their process. They can move like a lightning bolt, okay? If they can move like a lightning bolt, then they can accomplish more in a given amount of time. Okay, that means the game or the film can have a higher level of quality on the same budget. Okay. And that is the thing that people really, really care about. Also, if you have a really good process, you probably are going to have good models, good rigs, good topology. And that means that if there are other artists and animators on the team, they're going to love to work with the things that you create. Okay, so I've gotten some files before, some blend files, where I'm like, oh no, okay, I got to go in and I have to spend an hour of my own time just kind of fixing things up so that I can then proceed to add things to the model or to animate a character. Okay, so yeah, you don't want your teammates to have that nasty situation. You want to give them a very nice file, easy to use, very well set up, and so just keep that in mind. Okay. But I do appreciate how much time you're putting in. Just try not to wear yourself out, because that, burnout is not something that goes away quickly. So don't let it come on, okay? Don't let it come on. You need to skip a couple problems, you do it, all right? Okay, we got a lot of stuff to do today. We have a phenomenal lecture on the kind of softer, a little bit more, in my opinion, more artistically interesting side of animation. Okay, the 12 principles of animation, right? You've gotten some animations into Blender. Now, how do you give them soul? Okay, how do you give them emotion and meaning? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. But we have some announcements before that, all right? So, just to make sure I am recording, yes. Did you know Blender is actually a surprisingly popular tool for creating 2D art and 2D animation. In fact, even retro style art is often done by small indie teams in Blender. And I want to show you a quick bit of footage to demonstrate this, okay? Often you'll take a 3D character, get them into a low poly state. You'll then kind of downsample the final render to make them look like a pixel character. This is what Dead Cells did, and this is what this game did. Let's take a look.
How to make pixel art in Blender. To get a live preview of what the render will look like in render mode, turn the compositor to all. Now, compositors just keep the scale image down by the value to 50%, then scale back up by the first same value. Math. Make sure to check these nodes. Plug it into a viewer not the compositor. This is just for a preview. Now for the actual render, I'm going to be setting filter size to 0 to get nice pixels. Then we'll change the render resolution to something that makes sense for your game. I'm going 64. Render your image and roughly map the scale value to the render. Now you've got a live approximation of what your render will look like. This is super helpful in playing with color and shapes, as you'll be able to make better choices on what will be readable in your Finder. And that's how to make pixel art in Blender.
There you go. Okay, so if you really build up a lot of knowledge of Blender, especially things like materials and shaders and stuff like that, you can get to the point where you discover, wow, I can do a lot of different things with this tool. Okay, and it can fit into the workflow, the pipeline for a lot of different kinds of games and kinds of different art styles. Okay? All right, a quick shout out to the animation kind of research focused YouTube channel, New Frame Plus, a super cool channel. This is, I like to show off channels that go into game design deep dives, but this is one which goes into a ton of different games. For instance, Zenless Zone Zero, right? The crazy amount of animation that's in that game, it's kind of wild. The Pizza Towers animation, right? The animation of Sonic Frontiers. If you are really into animation and what makes animation feel good, feel different, then this is a great channel for you, okay? So go check it out. Resident Evil animations in real life. Have any of you played Resident Evil? So Resident Evil is a very old school, very kind of old feeling, retro survival horror game. It is an uncompromising game. It's an uncompromising series. And as groundbreaking and beautiful and realistic as it was at the time, in like the 90s, it has a style to it. It has a style to it. If you're playing a Resident Evil game, a classic style Resident Evil game, it's going to feel like a classic style Resident Evil game. And here's what I mean by that. Just watch this. This is Resident Evil animations in real life. Let's take a look. Watch the camera angles. Oh my goodness. The camera angles in Resident Evil just, they make your heart sing. Okay, watch this. Corey recreates a bunch of them. Also, I didn't know Corey is a UMich person. You're going to see this in just a sec. Watch this.
This is Officer Kingship. You got a call about Durban? Hello? I got locked in here? Whoa! Are you okay? You gotta get out of here. Sir, don't worry. Backup is on the way. You look for him. What happened? Zombies. They bit my legs. Zombies. What? Zombies? I was just washing the dishes. And then I feel something. It was a little prick on my leg.
Okay, I'll let you check out the rest of the video. If anyone can figure out how to get in touch with Corey, let me know. Because if this guy's a University of Michigan fan, we got to talk. Okay, I've got some footage of a topic that we're not really going to cover much in this class, but it is an important topic, and this is the topic of animation retargeting. So imagine that you have an animation that you've made for a human being. You made that animation for a particular skeletal structure for a human, right? And let's say you've got a walking cycle or a dance cycle, and you want not a human to do this animation, but you want a T-Rex. Well, this is footage of Sarah Oversat performing a retarget of a human animation to a T-Rex mesh. And you can see how it's going right here. Well, not a T-Rex, sorry, but a dinosaur of some sort. Yep, you can see that the creature is using the same animation as a human would. Okay, they've just retargeted, Sarah has just retargeted the lower bones of the skeleton, kind of in the leg, so that it works for both the human rig and the creature rig, which is kind of cool, huh? So this is to say that there's pretty much a never-ending list of interesting technical topics that come up when you're making a big-scale game. We probably won't worry about this semester. We got other fish to fry, but it's something that might come up at a bigger studio for sure. Okay? If you remember the first day of lecture when we showed the Red Dead Redemption bug with the flying people, right? That's kind of what happened. The humans got retargeted. The bird animations, the bird rig got retargeted to humans by accident. Okay. Okay. So we have a new assignment. Okay. And if you look at the schedule, this is our final obstacle until we reach that nice, just easy breezy 2-week long, 3D in real life assignment. Okay, this is the 3D printing assignment right here, homework 7. And you know how many questions homework 7 has? 2. Okay, you're going to have to 3D print 3 models, I think. And you're going to have to, that should take like maybe 2 or 3 hours, I think. And then you're going to have to do some photogrammetry. You're going to have to scan an object of your choosing from your real life, maybe something meaningful. And then you're going to bring it into Blender, okay, using some of the software on these computers. And that's pretty much it, okay? I don't think it's going to take you much time. You got 2 weeks to do it. So hopefully if you've got exams in the next couple of weeks, you'll be well set up to spend some time on those instead. A lot of questions in my evals for homework 5. Okay, Austin, why do you make us do the same problem 3 times in a row at the end of homework 5? You can really feel it if you do the whole homework in one go, can't you? It's like animate this character, animate this character, and then animate this character, right? And you're like, why did you do that? Well, number one, I probably just misbalanced the homework and thought it would go faster for you than it was. I probably should have only made it twice. So I might remove one of those questions for next year. And another thing I might do is I might give you more flexibility over what kind of animations you want to do. The animations that I typically request from you are common animations that you often see in games. In fact, you're going to have to do those in the second half of the course, right? Bringing your characters from Unity, they have to have certain animations, and so we're getting practice. Another thing is simply the muscle memory of it, okay? The repetition of it. There are, I kid you not, there are well-regarded drawing courses where on the first day of class, they say, hey class, over the next week, you're going to draw a cube 100 times. And over that next week, you're going to draw 100 cubes. And you're going to do it from different angles and different perspectives, but you're going to draw that cube. And then when you're done, you're going to draw the next cube. Okay, you're going to draw cubes until you develop a taste for it. Okay? And then you're going to draw some more. And then maybe one day you'll move on to the pyramids or the spheres. Okay? In any case, this is a muscle memory thing. It's not very pleasant the first time you deal with the action editor or the NLA. The good news, though, is that after you get a feel for the UI, how to make it do what you want, and importantly, after you get a feel for what's going on, okay, after your mental model of what actions actually are and how they actually work fills in and completes, then you're going to move much faster. You're going to love animating in Blender. You can spend all your time focusing on the cool poses, right? And less time messing with this nasty UI that Blender has, okay? I don't know if calling it nasty is unfair. It does get the job done, doesn't it? But, oh my goodness. I guess it's very fast and efficient once you have a feel for it. Until then, Animation 2 actually begins with one more question on the topic of actions. And I have a feeling this question is really going to help you understand what's actually happening when you toggle to different animations, right? The quick gist of it, the spoiler alert, is that you may not realize, but every object you have is running an active action. It has an active action that you've told it to run. And you can click on another object and change its action at the bottom, and then click on another object and change its action. You can get different objects to play different actions. And when you press space, all the objects will play whatever action you've given to each of them. The problem comes, have you ever gotten it like, I made this action, but it's just not playing? I press space, it's not playing. Well, usually what has happened is you've given an action to an object, and that action does not have anything to do with that object. So nothing plays, right? You can have a cube, and you've animated it to go up and down. You've got a camera that spins, and it's got an action. But if you give the cube the camera action, and you give the camera the cube action, both of those objects are just going to sit there and look at you. Like, you crazy? What are you doing here? Okay? I wish Blender would not let you do this. Like, why does it let you do this so easily? It is very unconcerned with beginners getting themselves crushed, okay? Anyway, this second homework is kind of a miscellaneous advanced topics for animation homework. You're going to be doing some vocal animation, right? You're going to be doing some facial shape key animation, which you haven't really done yet. You're going to get some more time with actions in the NLA, and you're also going to get some more freedom, okay? In fact, the last question Not even game related. You got 20 seconds you got to fill. Go grab a character. Go make a little 20-second short film. Okay? You can do whatever you want. Do not care. As long as it's like got a couple different actions in it. So if you just create a walk cycle and then it takes 2 seconds, so you make it repeat 10 times to get to 20 seconds, I'm going to be real salty about that, okay? So don't do that. Otherwise, yeah, hope you enjoy it. Only 6 problems. I think it's easier than homework 5, okay? I actually think it's easier than homework 5. We'll see. It's one of those homeworks where if you want to go crazy, you can make it way longer than homework 5. But if you want to just get those points, you can get those pretty quickly, okay? All right, so hopefully you enjoy. Going to have some dynamic physics. We're going to teach you how to do like hair, flowing hair this time. What else? You're going to do some rotoscoping, okay? So those of you who are shy, all right, you're going to get a friend to do this, I guess. But basically, in industry, when an animator is trying to figure out how to animate a new kind of pose, right? Or a new animation, a dance or something that they've not really done before. Often, they will literally get either themselves or a friend just stand in front of a camera and do the pose, right? The animation. From that, you extract the keyframes. You extract those key poses. You go back into Blender, you create the keyframes, and that can help teach you how to do certain animations, okay? So anyway, look forward to a bunch of goofy footage flowing into the Discord server pretty soon. Okay, all right. You know what's going to happen? It's going to be like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. next Sunday, and we're going to have some deliriously sleepy-looking footage, okay, with people trying to get through the homework. I think that's what's going to happen. Okay, well, hopefully you have a good time, all right? The homework itself doesn't have that much with the 12 principles of animation. The 12 principles of animation that Evan is about to school you on is going to kind of hopefully seep into all of your work until the end of the course, okay? It's going to give you a passive buff. Hopefully you'll be thinking about these principles whenever you animate anything, okay? But the homework itself won't go into that too much. Okay, question?
Oh, yeah. On the topic of Resident Evil,
Yeah.
In the early games, I know I watched a friend play it, so we sat through all of the 5-second animations of the door opening,
Yes.
like going upstairs.
Yeah.
And they had individual animations for different.
Yes,
What
that's right. It's
is
amazing.
The purpose of that?
It's
Is it
a loading.
storytelling?
Yeah, it's a loading cutscene.
Oh.
So in the early days, so some context on the PlayStation, let me see, PS1 console. The first Resident Evil game, in fact, the first 3 primarily came out on the PlayStation. This is my first game console, by the way. That's how old I am. I think it came out in like the mid-90s.
Something like that.
Yeah, I was born in 92. And so if you look at this console, it was one of the first of its kind to support discs. It had a disc drive, okay? Until this point, most of the consoles had cartridges. Cartridges, which you've seen the NES, the Atari, Sega Genesis, cartridges have a unique property. They are very, very fast. They're extremely fast. You can get data out of a cartridge like lightning speed. But cartridges are very expensive and their capacity is very limited. The PlayStation console is really one of the first to say cartridges are gone. We're going to do discs and disc drives. Discs are the inverse of cartridges. Discs, they're slow. Okay, it is slow getting data off a disk, but the capacity is wildly better. And as it turned out, as time progressed, storage capacity, the amount of stuff we could put into a game, was actually more important to gamers than the loading times. So what happened was a lot of the PlayStation 1's games have long loading screens, but they try and hide it. So Resident Evil, the door opening and closing, the walking up the stairs animation, right? It's very frustrating. But every time you see that, it's loading the next area, and it's trying to hide that, okay? Also, if you play remakes of those early Resident Evil games, depending on the remake, those will be skippable. They're in, but only for aesthetic and atmospheric reasons. And you can often press start, and you just, or in the options, you can just eliminate them entirely. So that's why. Okay, any other questions? Okay, Evan, let's rock and roll. Let's talk about the 12 principles of animation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, do you want to microphone? Yeah, I just want to do that. Okay. On the back. Glad to see everybody came back. All right. Hopefully you guys can hear me. So yeah, let's talk about the 12 principles. So yeah, these are not, like, you're not going to be tested on these, but the next lecture, we are going to talk, like, through the guise of them. So try to remember them as best you can. It's not hard to find a list out there. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to cover half of what I would want to cover with these. This is, like, Animation 101. This is what, people study this for 4 years and still feel like they didn't get the whole picture of it. So I'm going to do my best in an hour and a half, but bear with me. So 12 Principles of Animation. This is, I kind of blocked it with other images, but this is The Illusion of Life. This is a book that was written by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. And these were, they're just two early Disney animators who just kind of figured it out. Like, they just kind of, like, animation existed, Betty Boop, all this early rubber hose stuff. But it didn't really look that good. Didn't have weight. Didn't have soul. Come along Disney, and all the guys were just working there. They just kind of did things, tried things, and as they worked, they found that some things worked better. And eventually they created, like, this entire medium as it exists today. And all of the things that people spend their entire lives studying. So this is basically the Animator's 101 guidebook to crafting, like, good and appealing animation. It isn't required reading, but I highly recommend picking it up. If you don't want to give Disney or any subsidiary of Disney any money, it's not that hard to find online. But I definitely recommend reading it. If you like Disney at all of the, like, really cool images and history that you can get out of this book, plus it'll make you a better animator, I think it's worth a read. Throughout this lecture, I'm going to put up, they might be a little long, but quotes directly from the book because I think they're really interesting. If you read at the speed of light, bear with me. I'm going to read them aloud just so that everyone gets the full picture of them. But yeah, so I think this one's really interesting as it's like page 4. The animators continued to search for better methods of relating drawings to each other and had a few ways that seemed to produce a predictable result. They could not expect success every time, but these special techniques of drawing a character in motion did offer some security. As each of these processes acquired a name, it was analyzed and perfected and talked about. And when new artists joined the staff, they were taught these practices as if they were the rules of the trade. To everyone's surprise, they became the fundamental principles of animation. Again, when there's no one to teach it, they found a way and they started teaching it themselves. So, the principles are as follows. There's 12 of them: squash and stretch, anticipation, staging, straight ahead versus pose to pose, follow through and overlapping action, slow in, slow out, which is also known as ease in, ease out, arcs, secondary action, timing, exaggeration, solid drawing, appeal. There's not a ton of overlap, but a lot of them sound like each other. So it's easy to get them mixed up. We're going to go through them one by one. The slides are all linked so you have access to them. And you can always go back for more reference. But yeah. Are there any questions beforehand, or I'll just launch into it? No? Okay. Let's talk about squash and stretch. So you've seen the bouncing ball animation before. The animators that wrote the book considered this by far the most important discovery. And it is defined as, go figure, the squashing and stretching of animated characters or objects to convey impact or to exaggerate motion. You'll see this all over, like, 2D animated stuff, all over cartoonish stuff. It's very easy to see it there. Basically, every organic feeling movement is aided by a feeling of elasticity. These characters shouldn't move like this, even like the completely realistic lion with bones and flesh and all of that still moves kind of like a balloon that's being stretched. And the reason for that, or not the reason for that, but it just feels better. It feels more interesting. An important factor of it is that volume is always conserved. This is super important. Note that as the character's face gets shorter, squashier, it has to get wider as well. Same thing, as it gets taller, it gets thinner. This is really important for making it not feel like your things are, like, growing, shrinking, like, not still an organic thing, but that they feel like they have mass. And actually, I'll note this. I just think this is interesting. With Genie here, you'll see it. Note the length, how it shortens as this gets longer. It's not necessarily like keeping the exact volume. It's not the exact like pixel measurements, everything exactly the same size, but this area gets smaller as this area gets wider. You'll see it all over the place. So yeah, and the amount that an object squashes and stretches says something about how solid it is. Got like a water balloon versus a rock. Again, you'll notice with like Bob here, he starts up here when he's all squished. When he comes down, it actively has to like shorten to show us that he is gelatinous, liquidy. This is something our bodies naturally do. You don't need to be a wacky cartoon character. You don't need to be like literally squashing and stretching up and down. You can see with like the jumper here, squash, stretch, squash, stretch, squash. It's just a thing of life. This principle applies to movement without crazy deformation, and it's a really good tool for making your animation feel like it has weight. Additionally, and this is really useful for this class specifically, but deforming a 3D model is really computationally intensive. You'll notice, like, as you've been making your rigs, if you scale up a bone, it will scale up the mesh. But it's going to look kind of weird. And if you're doing that a ton in a video game to a whole bunch of different models, the computer's going to struggle a little bit more with that than just moving a rig around. So we don't always want to actually physically squash and stretch our models, but the principle's worth knowing for our movements. Notice with Mario here, squashes, stretches, and then squashes back down when he comes back down. I'm also realizing how much the Zoom is, or the Twitch is just seeing like the up the nose shot of me, so enjoy. On the topic of New Frame Plus, there's going to be a lot of videos in this one just because they can say it better than I can. Here's Dan from that YouTube channel showing you how even a really heavily armored metal mech from a kind of bad game can employ this principle to good effect.
Subtle. Check out the Javelin's jump launch anthem. Now, they're not actually stretching the proportions of the Javelins, to my knowledge, which is good because they're supposed to feel solid and metal and heavy. But the animators are still deploying this principle in the way the body compresses and then sharply extends to really emphasize the speed and power of that launch into the air, which is one of the big reasons that this basic move looks and feels so darn good.
So yeah, again, there's not going to be a whole lot like testing you on this. We're not going to like specifically drill you on like what principle of animation is this. But knowing these, seeing these in the animations that you watch and the ones that you find interesting or that you think look good will hopefully sort of teach you how to apply it in your own animation. Any questions on squash and stretch before we move on? No? All right. Let's talk about anticipation. So another quote from the book, people in the audience will not be able to understand the events on the screen unless there is a planned sequence of actions that leads them clearly from one activity to the next. They must be prepared for the next movement and expect it before it actually occurs. This is something in theater, this is something in acting, and it applies just as much in animation. Anticipation is the lead up or preparation for the primary action. Note Goofy winding up all this much, all for the primary action to just be a little piddly, but the anticipation made that funny. And for video games specifically, this is one of the most important principles for like game feel. Let's talk about that first. Consider the Bokoblin enemy. If you've played Breath of the Wild, you'll know that this particular demo is a little bit spoofed because they couldn't actually do either of these attacks with the same weapon, but it's okay. The Bokoblin can attack, let's just say, two different ways. It can either swing its weapon around, or it can do a forward slash. How do you, as the player, know which one it's going to do? Because the swinging one, before it does it, you'll see he does like a yell, holds it up above his head, and then he starts swinging. So you know how to react. With this one, he waves it back, he snarls, and then he goes forward. Otherwise, if he just went, you wouldn't know how to react. You couldn't play around that. It wouldn't be fun. So anticipation on your player's animations is a little different from like something that you're reacting to, will also have a huge impact on game feel. So if you've got an action that takes a whole lot of time to wind up, say, like hitting a monster in Monster Hunter, it takes a really long time to get that thing up and over his head so that you can actually hit the monster, but it feels really weighty. It feels powerful. It feels like you're actually going to do something against this massive monster. But at the same time, it also feels kind of laggy. It kind of feels slow. You put in your like action, you say, hey, I want to attack, and then a second later you're actually attacking. It's a balance. This can be the intention to, again, create a risk or like to make an action feel worth it. But you need to be aware of it. So, for instance, in a game like Street Fighter, if you want to just punch, you want to get it out there, you want that to be your quick, easy, early attack move. You'll notice he's got like maybe 2 frames of anticipation. He's got one wind up, one kind of here, and then the fist is out. He's punching. For quick movements, this will make him feel really responsive. It doesn't really leave a whole lot of room for you, the animator, to do a whole lot, but even if you've only got 1 or 2 frames, putting as much into those as you possibly can will have a huge impact. It will make the character feel more or less responsive based on how much animation is beforehand. The key is to make the most of those frames. Any questions on anticipation? Definitely could have put more in there, but when I made these, I was definitely a little more worried about how long the lecture was going to take. So definitely look up more about animation or anticipation on your own. That one's huge. Any questions on this? All right. Let's talk about staging. A new quote. Staging is the most general of the principles because it covers so many areas and goes back so far into theater. Its meaning, however, is very precise. It is the presentation of an idea so that it is completely and unmistakably clear. An action is staged so that it is understood, a personality so that it is recognizable, an expression so that it can be seen, a mood so that it will affect the audience. Yeah, each is communicating to the fullest extent with the viewers when it is properly staged. So this one is kind of a whole extra conversation as it would apply to gameplay, so I'm not going to really get into that. It's kind of a whole game design thing of like how do you get your players to go to the right thing and look at the right thing in a setting and all of that. That's like a game design class that we're not going to do today. So we're just going to kind of talk about cutscenes and like animation because I'm pretty sure that's what like half of you are here for, not the game stuff. But boss intros are a really obvious example of how this can be done well in a game. You want to frame up the boss so that it looks really imposing when it does show up. Can you tell I like Monster Hunter? For a little bit on another principle of staging, here's Steve Buscemi to help me out with this. Staging covers everything from the specific characters on the screen to where they're placed and what the background and what it depicts says about those characters. So all of these are Steve Buscemi, but Steve Buscemi on a late night show versus in a high school versus whatever the heck is happening in this one says something different about who Steve Buscemi is in this moment. When you're making environments for your characters, think about what the setting and where you're going to encounter them says about them, what their mood should be like in that setting. Yeah. Cool. More importantly, staging governs where your viewer's eye is going to go to. Again, this isn't so much used in game development on a like level that I could communicate to you here. So we're just going to talk about in like creating a scene. Guiding the eye is incredibly important to making sure that everything you want your audience to see gets its time in the spotlight. Too much going on can make your scene feel muddled and directionless, and your viewers might miss something important. Again, there's a lot of videos in this one. Interesting tidbit about all the ones that are going to come from this guy. How many of you have seen animator versus animation? Remember that? Like stick fighting in the early days of the internet? Yeah, like Newgrounds. These videos are old, but this is that guy.
When you're animating, you want to be in full control of where the audience is looking. You're essentially saying, look at this, now look at this, and now look at this. This control is achieved through staging. All of the elements of the scene work together to move the viewer's eyes around the screen. Here's an example of bad staging. The characters are competing for stage presence, so the viewer doesn't know which one to look at. The camera has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Again, he says it better than I could do just up here standing and talking at you. So yeah, anything about staging? These are all pretty like straightforward, I feel like. And the most like that you can get out of these is just to sort of know that they exist and then start seeing them in the animation that you watch for yourself. Let's talk about straight ahead action and pose to pose. With pose to pose, there is clarity and strength. In straight ahead action, there is spontaneity. This principle is more about like how you actually do the animating, how you get to the final animation. And it offers up 2 different methods. First up, pose to pose animation. This is more of how I like to animate characters in 3D. You define the key moments in the action, often called key poses, and then you fill in the in-betweens. Back when it was 2D drawings, you would literally draw the drawings for the key actions, and then you would draw in the in-betweens separately. With 3D animation, you can kind of just make a pose library, put them all on the timeline, and then see what the computer's going to do to interpolate between them. That's often where I start with my animation. I'll make the key poses as I want them, in context or out of context, doesn't really matter. Put them on the timeline, get the key poses feeling like how I want them to feel in terms of when they show up, see how the computer is doing for the interpolation, and then kind of tweak things as they go. It's very popular for 3D animation because your computer can do a lot of the in-between for you. And again, it's really useful for defining the timing of an action before you've spent too much time on it. This will also lead to actions that are easier to loop, because if you can always return to the same pose, it's easy to do so. It'll loop better. You'll get better walking animations, stuff like that. As opposed to pose to pose, we have straight ahead action. First, you just kind of create your starting pose, and you just keep going from there. This will often create more it's worse for looping actions, but it'll create more fluid, kind of interesting actions that can work really well for like particle effects or unexpected things. Like if you fall off a cliff, how are you going to fall off a cliff? I don't know. Play it out as you would. It's not great for reusing poses, but the better rigged your model is for animation, the easier you'll find it is to use this method in 3D. Because if you can just kind of move forward with just the limited number of things that you can get in a nice rig versus having to use a whole bunch of bones, it's hard for me to visualize that with a GIF, but straight ahead gets easier with a nice rig. And this can often be used to supplement pre-posed motion to make everything feel more lively. This is sort of where you'll be able to use both at the same time to make the most interesting actions. Again, Alan's going to show this better than I can, so here you go.
Another method is to animate the figure using pose-to-pose without the ears, and then going through and adding the ears using straight ahead. This is good because you can focus on the figure's movements without the distraction of having to do his ears. And you can also focus on the physics of his ears without the distraction of his body's movement. This also applies to hair, tails, and other appendages. When you work...
As it says up there, that's a really good use of both pose-to-pose and straight ahead, but also overlapping action, which is the next principle. How about that? Or first, anything about straight ahead versus pose-to-pose? Any questions? Okay. For those of you who weren't here on Monday, I like to pause for longer than you'd think I'd need to pause, because if people are stewing on a question, usually that happens about 5 seconds to 10 seconds in. All right. Let's talk about overlapping action. Our quote: "Things don't come to a stop all at once, guys. First there's one part, and then another." That is Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston directly quoting Walt Disney himself. Agree with his politics or not, he did make good animation. This one is really important for removing stiffness from your animations, for making your characters feel like they have physical mass, like they physically exist within the world. Honestly, most of the principles are for that. There are 3 main categories of follow-through and overlapping action we'll need to think about, and I'll kind of break them down as we go. 1. If the character has any appendages, such as long ears or a tail or a big coat, these parts will continue to move after the rest of the figure has stopped. So we got the carrot, the nice leaf here. The carrot makes it all the way, but the leaf is going to have to do its little spring thing. Rapunzel, obviously, very long braid. It's going to stop moving after she does. It has less weight. Its inertia is going to carry it further. There's a really fun aspect for making our characters, because in the actual character design, we can add things like this to make it feel, with overlapping action, like they exist in the space. If your character's all tight-fitting clothes and, blocky arms, you can't really do much with that. Steve from Minecraft doesn't get to have follow-through overlapping action because nothing on him moves other than his body. But building this directly into our characters can give us this option. And in 3D, this can be as complicated as procedural physics. We can do specific hair physics that actually follow along with everything. Or it can be as simple as doing it by hand. For example, I've been making this wizard game. Ignore that this footage doesn't look good. It's heavily beta. And I made this wizard character for it that is rigged specifically to have dynamic physics all over his model. So you'll see on the hat, on the feathers, the beard, the robe itself, the sleeve here, everything is dynamically moving based on the character's motion. It's not animated directly. And it makes the character just feel more fun to move around. It's more bouncy. He feels more real. Versus this one, I just kind of turned all the physics off, and it just kind of feels like plastic. It doesn't really feel good. Let it move around a little bit more. You can see the hat is just static. Not fun. This one specifically uses the Dynamic Bone add-on for Unity, which is also how Austin made Peach's hair in the web game, if you've played that recently. But it's also not that hard to do this thing manually. Also in the web game, I did Prince Random's Feather entirely by just keyframing it. And it made him feel a lot better to move around. Again, with Steve, our second category of follow-through and overlapping action is that the body itself does not move all at once, but instead it stretches, catches up, twists, turns, and contracts as the forms work against each other, unless you're Steve. So, for real, actually right now, if you're able to, get up and jump, but I want you to try and make your arms move at the same rate as your body, completely stock still like Steve. I'm completely serious. Come on, yeah. It feels weird, right? It doesn't feel good. All right, now that you're like keenly aware of it, jump normally and feel how your shoulders actually move. Like everything kind of catches up later, right? And that feels better. And if we don't have that in our animation, we know it. We see it. Thank you all for doing that. I really appreciate that. I really did not know if that was going to work out. I'll take 50%. Yeah, it looks weird. It feels weird. And if we're doing it on an animated character, again, this is Steve, so it's supposed to feel weird, but it feels weird. So yeah, the body is asynchronous. It's weird. All of the parts of your body weigh individually different amounts. So like this is obviously very exaggerated. That's the point. Principle 1. But like as this character is jumping, you'll notice the hands are the last thing to raise up. When they get to the complete peak, they get up there with the body, but they're the last thing to reach the ground because they're the lightest. If you think about throwing a body and then throwing a pair of hands up in the air, the body's going to land first, even if they're connected. This is a super important principle, and it can transform your animations in a big way. Even just letting something kind of trail behind by one frame can make everything feel a lot better. And to Austin's point earlier, this is where reference footage is really important. It's kind of hard to get a sense for this stuff just from like what you think it'll look like in your head. We're good at like interpolating physics in our mind and kind of thinking about what things probably should look like when things look wrong. But actually getting things there is a completely different story. Use reference footage. Take videos of yourself. More importantly, look up reference footage for movies you like. I don't have the footage here, but I highly recommend 2 specific ones. If you like The Amazing Digital Circus, after every single episode, every single one of the animators posts like shots I animated, and they'll have reference footage in there. Fascinating stuff. Or if you liked Into the Spider-Verse, look up specifically the burger scene with Peter B. Parker. The reference footage is awesome. It is so funny, and you can see exactly where the character came from, even on a person who looks nothing like it. Do you want me to look it up?
Really quick?
Sure.
Hold on. The homework.
Oh, is this in the homework?
Let's see here.
I haven't looked at animation 2.
Okay, hold on. Here we go. Okay, let's try this.
I shouldn't say this because I majored in math, but you have my 1,000% potential.
Wow, that's a lot. I'm thrilled to hear that.
Have you heard from Anesthesia?
Yeah, so that kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Especially like when you're watching something animated. If you watch an action, you see something happen, and you're like, that was satisfying. That was fun to watch. I enjoyed looking at that. There's a good chance the reference footage is online, especially if it's recent. If it's anything from Nimona, it's all out there. It's so fascinating. I like watching this stuff. For example, me doing it, when I was animating for Pick It Up's cutscenes, I wanted to know which leg I was actually going to balance on when the guy kicks down the door and slams down a box. So I literally, in weekend clothes, kicked the door down to my porch, slammed a box on the ground to see which leg I was actually going to balance on, how far up this leg was going to go before I drew. This was done in about an hour, so don't judge that the animation is not colored. But yeah. The last principle, or the last category of overlapping action, is that the way in which an action is completed often tells us more about the person than the drawings of the movement itself. This is kind of a principle of like, the action needs to happen, they need to land, the body mechanics need to happen their way, but we can bring personality to it. This is all personality. So when I'm animating, even if, if I'm taking on a new character, even if this isn't an action they're ever going to do, I like to ask myself questions about it and maybe even make some test animations for that character based on simple overarching questions like, how does a character land from a huge fall? Do they slap horribly into the ground? Do they land really, heroic, superhero landing? Or do they kind of riff on that? Make something interesting. Do they do any other infinite versions of a land? Ask yourself what your characters would do. And it'll lead to some interesting things. Again, if a character's goofy, their follow-through is going to be ridiculous. This isn't like, these are all body mechanics that would happen. They need to, finish off the baseball swing. But he didn't need to do all that. He chose to because it was funny and it matches Goofy. If a character is like carrying a heavy weapon, or we want them to appear powerful and strong, that follow-through is going to take a long time. This is also really important for gameplay. Just like anticipation will make your moves feel really sluggish, will feel really heavy and powerful because of how long it took to start, the follow-through will do the same. If an attack in a fighting game is really powerful, how can follow-through communicate that to players? Just kind of thinking about it in your head. If an attack really it's got a lot of punch to it, how long should it take for that action to conclude? Probably a longer time, right? That's very much true in Ganondorf's neutral B here, where he's stuck in this pose for a really long time. That feels like a long time as you're playing the game, because especially if you don't hit it, you're still stuck like this for a really long time. Someone can just come along and hit you. It adds risk versus reward. It tells the player hey, this was a really powerful attack and you dodged it, nice job. And it tells the person using it, ooh, you screwed up. Shouldn't have used that there. Really important, we're not going to get to this principle for a little while, but we should differentiate this at this point with secondary action. Follow-through is mechanical. It can have personality, but it's based on the parts of our character that are actually there. This ponytail is here, and so, the way that it bounces is all up to you, but it should bounce. It should do something that isn't just stay stock still like a Barbie plastic ponytail, That's where follow-through and overlapping action are really important. For secondary action, it's more emotive. It's a choice to do that. Ariel doesn't have to play with her hair here, but adding that secondary action tells us a little bit more about how she's feeling, and it aids the primary action, which is her facial expressions. So we'll get into secondary action a little later, but try to differentiate those in your head. Follow through, you need to do it. It's just a matter of how you do it. Secondary action's a choice. So yeah, any questions on that before we move on? All right. Let's talk about slow in, slow out. My friend, when I was demoing this lecture, told me I should pause for people to laugh at it, but I think that was just her. All right, our quote for this one: by putting the in-betweens close to each extreme, and only one fleeting drawing halfway in between, the animator achieved a very spirited result, with the character zipping from one attitude to the next. This was called slow in and slow out, since that was the way that the in-betweens were timed. This one kind of is the first one that it doesn't transfer exactly from 2D to 3D, but we're going to talk about it anyway because it's really important. Objects with mass do not simply start and stop on a dime. You can't just stop moving all at once. It feels weird. It can. It's useful in some actions, but if I'm moving my arm, I shouldn't just skip from place to place. Acceleration needs to be taken into account. Since each frame that the viewer sees is played at a consistent tempo, i.e. for games, it'd be 60 frames a second. For movies and television, it's often 24. We need to change the distance that an object travels from frame to frame to achieve this effect. So with good slow in and slow out, we'll see it feels like it properly waves back and forth like it's supposed to. Without, it just kind of bounces awkwardly. It doesn't feel good. And the way they achieve this is by physically shortening the distance between each frame. If it moves less between two frames, it will feel like it's moving slower. Easing doesn't need to be used for every action. It's a choice to make naturalistic ones feel better. For a robot, like Bastion, or even for comedic impact, like if you're just absolutely slamming a guy into the bottom of the stage, stopping on a dime will feel better. You don't want the shoe to kind of like come to a nice resting stop. But there is still easing here in that it kind of bounces back up. That's an easing mode. Note that even for robotic movement, like Bastion, there's still anticipation telling us what he's about to do. He kind of jerks forward before he actually makes it to the place that he wants to be. And there's a bit of easing at the end to communicate that, like, yeah, he couldn't just come to a stop. Like, the servo might have come to a stop, but the rest of him that the servo is moving does not come to a stop immediately. Yeah.
Well, isn't the blender equivalent of this that sort of bevel that we worked with, but the computer doesn't work?
Yep. Great question. With 3D software, we don't have to do this by hand. We don't have to individually do it because by default, Blender is going to use a Bezier curve on everything. It's going to ease everything that you do. We actually have to turn it off in order to not use easing when we're working with Blender. But we have things like the curves editor, the graph editor, to deliberately change them on a like frame by frame level to make it feel exactly how we want. Yeah, graph editor. But again, if you're like me, I kind of struggle with the graph editor. I see how it's very useful, but it's very complicated, and I don't love it. But I can usually get what I want to happen by just right-clicking on a keyframe and then picking my interpolation mode from that. Bezier is your basic. It will add easing by itself. But all of these, play around with them. See what they do, because a lot of them can probably accomplish what you want. And then use linear if you want something to look better. Also, back and bounce are great. I use them a lot. And right below interpolation, you'll also have your easing mode controls, which literally do this. Ease in before the keyframe. We'll space them less and less until you get to that keyframe. Ease out. Do the same thing on the other side. Questions on that? Again, play around with it. It's very much a feel thing for, if you want to start with Bezier and then end in linear, use the graph editor. You'll see with like these ones, they're hitting the same poses at the same time, but it feels different in Bezier. It feels different when you're not just going forward at a constant rate. So yeah, ease in, ease out. Questions on that? Okay, let's talk about arcs. So your quote for this one, very few living organisms are capable of moves that have a mechanical in and out or up and down precision. The movements of most living creatures will follow a slightly circular path. This should make sense. They describe the curved trajectories of all components of a living organism while moving. And since most living elements of creatures are at their very basic level, just kind of sticks coming out of joints, which create an arc, it kind of should make sense why this makes motion feel better. Does that make sense? Okay, let's talk about it a little more. So this principle broadly applies to just about any animation you're going to be making. Like, on the basic mechanics of Vi's movement here, like, it would feel good without all the arcs, maybe, but it feels really good when her legs go, whoop, full arc. She curves all the way out to get there, yeah. Arcane's a good show, you should watch it. And this one, again, is actually really easy to obey in a 3D skeleton when working with rigs, because, again, it's all ball and socket joints, so you're probably going to get a lot of arcs on your own if you pay attention to it. That said, if you have, like, your arm is here, and then your arm is here, Blender's going to kind of just move it that way. And if you're doing it from here, like, that will probably make an arc. But if you're doing it in, like, IK, and you move the hand from here to here, it's going to find the straightest path for the hand to get there, and it's probably not going to make an arc. It's going to feel weird. It's going to look robotic. Movement is more appealing in an arc in general. It doesn't even need to be organic. Just make it an arc and it will feel better. If you've seen Doodly, again, great resource online. Watch more Doodly. This is where FK and IK can make a big difference. Here's him telling you how to do it with arms.
For the rest of the arm, we can look at mechanics in terms of arcs. Arms are a really great place to analyze arcs because the arm itself can move in a 360-degree circular fashion. Just like we did earlier when we looked at FK animation. And when the arm and forearm bend together, they can go in a straight line in and out while the elbow can go in a straight line down.
Combined these, you get a nice contrast between. If you analyze the movement by tracking the wrist and elbow, you'll see the kinds of arcs and straight lines animators use to make their animation pop.
Yeah. Once again, you can deliberately ignore this principle if you want to make your characters look really robotic. If you want to make it look like they're moving by a computer, don't do this. So characters with mechanical feeling movement, animations that aren't on a character don't always need an arc, but even then, often it feels better. Or interrupted motions, like if you get hit by a horse. But even then, you'll notice, Anna's head, she gets hit, it does like an arc. It does an actual like rotation around, and then she gets hit out in an arc. You'll see the impact follows from her chest so that she creates this crescent motion with her body, and it feels better. Even at the speed that you can't possibly see all that, you feel it. So, yeah, sometimes unnatural motion just kind of looks funny. If comedy is the goal, maybe don't use an arc. But, like, in general, if you can use an arc, use it. It'll feel better. Questions on those? Here's zipping through this. All right. Do you want me to give the break for 5 minutes? It's 2:33.
Let's do a 5-minute break.
All right, 5-minute break.
See you in 5.
2:38.
It's quite something to think like, wow, I animated this, but I don't quite understand why it looks bad.
Yeah.
And then you see different animations and you're like, oh my god, those look amazing.
It's all about watching more of them.
Guess so.
It is a treat to get to watch like as many of them as I do for this. But, oh my god, it's time consuming.
Yeah.
I have been, for lecture 11, I've gotten up to 13 examples coming from a whole bunch of different stuff where I'm trying to find like interesting.
Oh, is that one you want to do on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Cool, rock on. I thought I was going to have to make that motion.
I don't know, I've got it.
I was thinking, I don't know what to do.
I found the first ever animation done by Lego of Lego minifigures.
Oh, that's cool.
And it is grotesque. It is the funniest thing. Like juxtaposing the Lego movie.
Oh, did they try and make it really
They made
organic?
them fleshy.
Oh, no.
Horrible.
Oh, no.
And I'm so proud of that find. Like, there's a couple other ones where like I feel like everything has something interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
It's very much a call and response lecture, but
I remember a scene in particular from the Lego film.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Wild Style. She's doing like that, like attraction thing that films sometimes do with characters when one character is into another.
Oh yeah.
And she's doing like her
Blah
little
blah
hair.
backstory stuff.
Yes, she's doing like the little yes, and
the hair moves.
Yes, and it's rigid.
Yeah.
But it just slides on the pivot.
It's
right?
so good.
Amazing.
That is my favorite movie of all time.
It's really good. Oh.
I can buy you a freezer.
Get up to 60% off fall and Halloween.
Wow, that's amazing. Is that the animator?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like she looks nothing like Peter, but like you can see where all of it came from. It's so good.
Yeah, she animated herself.
No, but
Yeah.
like that's so like such like animated.
Like use props, make it interesting.
Dang.
One of the ones that has really good reference footage. I need Kevin. Come on, Kevin. What are you doing, man? I know I've seen them, but I can't find them right now.
All right, that's okay. You can send it to me later. We'll throw it in the Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how this river happening.
I'm just
Nice. Did you buy it?
yeah.
Okay.
I did buy.
I'm all for
this
the shop, but
I thought it was Kingston.
This King.
I didn't know they brought away the King cards.
Yeah, they have all the DLC except for the like Showdown because I couldn't figure out what else to play.
yeah.
For it. Oh yeah, so there's a third map. Oops. Still.
Oh.
All right. If we want to start thinking about coming back, we're turning to the action. The secondary action. Can everyone hear me? This is kind of lower than it was. There we go. All right. Let's talk about secondary action. So, our quote for this particular one: often, the one idea being put over in a scene can be fortified by subsidiary actions within the body. A sad figure wipes a tear as he turns away. Someone stunned shakes his head as he gets to his feet. When this extra business supports the main action, it is called a secondary action. If it conflicts... Guys, excuse me. Thank you. If it conflicts or becomes more interesting or dominating in any way, it is either the wrong choice or it is staged improperly. This is super important. This one gets complicated. So, for film and cutscenes, this is a super important way to spice up your animations and communicate emotions. Like, this little head turn tells you maybe she's new in the area. She doesn't need to do it. Her eyes could do all that for her, but moving the head around with it gives you a little bit more interest to the animation. A common way to achieve this in 3D animations is what we talked about last time, asynchronous layered animation, NLA. Remember this person? Yeah. And in Unity, we'll actually be able to do it with animation layers, which is my favorite thing, because you get to basically just take any animations that you've already made, whatever you want, mask out which parts of the body they should control, and then you got a completely different animation. In like a game, this could be as simple as just like applying a breathing loop to part of the character while the main animation is playing. On my wizard character, I don't know if I showed this, but I have just like a whole layer in Unity specifically dedicated to just kind of moving his chest in and out, like he's always breathing, and it makes everything feel just like a little bit more alive in a way that maybe you don't notice, but you can always feel. And again, don't judge the wizard as like my pinnacle animation. I've made all of the wizards for that, or all the wizards animations in about 2 hours complete for basically a game jam type of thing. Don't worry about it. Oh, here he is. Yeah. I also have him like blinking. That's a secondary action. If you've watched any documentary footage for the Scott Pilgrim versus the World movie, they weren't allowed to blink because it would distract from the main actions. It would feel less like a comic book. Edgar Wright, what's his name?
Which film?
Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Really?
Yeah. He didn't let the actors blink on set, or at least as little as they absolutely had to, so that it would feel more like a comic, because it's distracting secondary action.
Never noticed that.
Yeah. And again, it's important that secondary action doesn't get in the way of primary action in your scene. Let's hear from Alan again.
Primary action. If a figure has a sad expression that should be seen, and we are adding a secondary action of wiping away a tear, the hand should cover the face. On the other hand, don't let it go unnoticed. People might not even notice that there's a tear there unless you give it its own time. This is why the principle of staging is very important in secondary action. So let's take this.
Again, they all kind of bleed into each other in a lot of ways. On Wednesday, when we're talking about animations through the guise of the 12 principles, we'll often be like using a whole bunch of them interchangeably to actually describe what's going on with an action. No animation is just like, okay, I'm using squash and stretch here. They use some anticipation to get into the squash and then all of that. But yeah. hopefully that helps. There's going to be a lot of videos in the next couple of principles because they can say it better than I can. Once again, just as a disclaimer, and so you remember, secondary action is not overlapping action. This was an action that you chose to have secondarily, not mechanically necessary. It's there to add to a character and add a mode of depth to your animation, not to make your animations feel more weighty or realistic. Watch K-pop Demon Hunters if you have. It's been stuck in my head for a month. Oh, also watch Knights of Guinevere. It's great. And watch Amazing Digital Circus if I have to say that. It's great. All right. Timing. Or any questions on secondary action before we move on? Okay. Our quote, the number of drawings used in any move determines the amount of time that the action will take on screen. Go figure. Fast actions have fewer frames between poses, slower actions have more. It might sound really basic, but they did have to spell this out back then. They really had this figured out all the way down to the number of individual frames that you were going to get on an animation. To the right is a great breakdown that they actually made for 2D animations for how many drawings they would have to physically make to make something feel better, because they couldn't just kind of hit play and see how it felt. If you wanted to see how an animation felt, you either had to riffle all of your drawings on top of each other if you weren't repeating any drawings, or you had to go through the entire process of photographing it, rendering the reel, and then seeing it. So, yeah. They knew it back then. We don't have to do that today. We can extrapolate a little more from this principle than just the number of frames it takes. It can also affect how we feel about the same motion done with different timing. The personality and nature of an action is greatly influenced by the speed at which you transition between key poses. Alan again.
One simple action can have 10 different meanings depending on how many frames you give it. This man is leaning from one shoulder to the other. No in-betweens. It looks like his head is being hit by tremendous force, nearly snapping off his neck. With one in-between, his head is hit by a rolling pin or some other object. With two in-betweens, he has a muscle twitch. With three in-betweens, he's dodging the rolling pin or the other object. With four, he's saying, move it, get out of here. With five, he's more friendly, saying, over here, come on, hurry. With six, he sees the good-looking girl or the sports car he always wanted. With seven, he's trying to get a better look at something. With eight, he's searching for the peanut butter on the kitchen shelf. With nine, he is appraising something very thoughtfully. And with 10 in-betweens, he is stretching a sore muscle.
I actually needed that one. All right. We have fun here. Timing also dictates how many in-betweens we use between actions. If we draw a new pose every frame, for instance, in 2D animation, the action will often feel smooth and fluid. In traditional animation, this is referred to as drawing on ones. A new pose every single frame, 24 frames a second, preferably not 60 frames a second. This can sometimes feel too smooth if used for fast actions. It is a choice to use it. The animator's not just being lazy if they don't draw 24 new frames for every single second of a 90-minute movie. It is a choice. And frame rate, again, it's more of a stylistic choice than cost-cutting measure. This is some test footage of a canceled Medusa movie that is entirely animated on ones. Note how smooth all the movement feels. Makes you wish we got the movie, doesn't it? Yeah. Not every part of her needs to be moving at all times, but because this is traditionally animated with pencil and paper, you had to redraw every piece of the pose that's being held every single frame so that each of the snakes could be doing their own thing and she wouldn't have to move. If you're curious, by the way, this is animated by James Baxter. If you've watched Adventure Time, he made the horse by the same name. And also, you've definitely seen this.
As the sun will rise, all this time, children's of the song, it is sweet and strange, find if you can change, let it go wrong. Sun as the sun.
Very, very few people on Earth can do that. With the camera tracking and everything, I don't even think the guy uses reference footage. That's not to say you shouldn't. It's not a crutch. It's like a thing you should absolutely use. But yeah, that's James Baxter. He also like led the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Road to El Dorado. I'm going down. But yeah, what's up?
Do you think the environment in those shots were 3D combined with?
Yes.
Okay.
They gave him a 3D camera track, and they were like, here's what Belle looks like with a giant flowing dress. Here's the beast with coattails. Make this look good. And he did. Guy's insane. Yeah. Timing, again, also dictates how many in-betweens we use between actions. If we draw a new pose every frame, the animation will feel a little livelier. But in traditional animation, sorry, I'm going ahead of myself. Every other frame, the animation will feel a little livelier. It can feel a little more interesting. In traditional animation, this is referred to as drawing on twos. Oftentimes, animators will switch back and forth between 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. You can assume what those are to hold on to key poses as needed to make an action feel better. Again, a lot of video examples for this one. This is from a Doodly video. I think it's fascinating.
Animation is not as simple as the frame rate of a video game. Your average video game is usually between 24 frames a second and 60 frames a second, but games will usually try to keep it consistent. If the game is optimized, it's always going to try to be 24 FPS, 30 FPS, 60 FPS, whatever. It stays a consistent, solid number of frames per second. But animation changes frame rate all the time without us noticing. On average, animation tends to be at maximum of 24 frames a second, but it's rare for animation to even be at 24 frames a second the whole time. Usually it'll have that at 12 frames a second, and even drop down to 8 FPS or even 6 FPS. This is referred to as animating on 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, which is referring to how many frames the drawing is held for.
Again, you'll see why I can't just do this live. Watch Doodly, he's great. Again, we got like 2 more animation examples for this one, but they're too cool not to do. A lot of cool experimentation you'll probably have noticed in the 3D animation scene has been happening to get this aspect of 2D animation into 3D animation. Traditional 3D animation, you think of the Pixar look, heavy use of interpolation. You know, you've got your key poses, but everything moves all the time. It's always making its way there naturally. But it didn't start with the Spider-Verse, but like Spider-Verse kind of made it really popular. Animators have been playing a lot more with actually playing with 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s in 3D animation, kind of turning off interpolation and letting ourselves have that. And that's how we get really cool stuff like this.
Yes, the characters in this movie are animated all exclusively on 2s and 3s. This is the main method used to make it feel more cartoonish, even though it obviously is rendered in 3D. If they use any interpolation, it's very sparing. Pretty much every pose was handcrafted one frame at a time, like a stop animation movie. In addition to that, they use a lot of heavily exaggerated poses to emphasize the force and speed of emotion. Like in this scene, in a single pose, he goes from seated to standing with his fists raised. He gets a couple poses of wind-up, then on ones, bam, he punches the car and holds for 2 frames. They added a motion here, but only to the second one, which conveys a sense of speed when nothing else is changing.
Yeah. Anybody else go and see the Spider-Man re-releases on the weekend? No? They did. They put Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 from the Sam Raimi trilogy back in theaters with like extended footage, and I gotta say, 8 more minutes of the elevator scene in Spider-Man 2, life-changing. Loved it. Yeah, we got another Cam Wing clip for this one, but I think it's cool. I hope it's interesting to you guys.
Is when the story takes us to action sequence. It's like a switch flipped, and suddenly the motions are exaggerated with posing on 2s and 3s, with smear frames and action lines. Then once the scene starts to calm back down, the frame rate returns to where it was, like a signal to the audience that things are under control. The movie enters cartoon mode when they fight, and it goes back to storyboard mode when things are calm. It's a very cool effect.
I hope even through like the compression on Twitch there, or even just transfer to these TVs, that you can see the difference between, like, in the action scenes, it's a little choppy, but it feels more cartoonish, it feels more interesting, versus in that storybook scene at the end, like the cape is flowing, it's all simulated physics, it feels more like a Pixar movie. Also, if you missed Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, watch it. It's so good. I love that movie. Yeah, stream it so that we get more of them. Questions on timing. All right, 3 more. Let's talk about exaggeration. Our quote for this one: when Walt asked for realism, he wanted a caricature of realism. One artist said, I don't think he meant realism. I think he meant something that was more convincing, that made a bigger impact with people. Every so often in the animation, the character would do something unconvincing or to show how clever the animator was, and it wasn't real. It was phony. Walt would not accept anything that destroyed believability, but he seldom asked an animator to tame down an action if an idea was right for the scene. Again, people don't actually go when they're hit in the head. They probably go, ah. But this tells you more of what's happening. It's more fun. I don't remember why I put this here, but I'm sure it's good. Oh, yeah. No one can move that fast, but it's funny. And then, obviously, yeah. I love Aladdin. I probably don't need to say this, but if you haven't seen Aladdin, watch that. Exaggeration in animation is the principle of amplifying a character action, expression, or even their whole design to create a more pronounced emotive effect. This can be for comedic, dramatic purposes, whatever. It just needs to be a little bigger than it actually would be in life. You know? Pumbaa, obviously, a warthog's eyes would not be that big. Their nose would not be that big. Their mouth cannot open. Actually, I think their mouth can open that big, but it would be scary if they made it, like, realistic. Scar, same deal. Like, okay. Look at those eyes. Look at that. It's great. It's hard to, like, quantify exaggeration, so most of this is going to be me gushing. Maybe, honestly, the most enjoyable principle of animation to actually do for some of you is where you get to show your personality. It's kind of where stylish animation is separated from naturalistic stuff. In TF2, this is still just a guy running or walking forward with heavily strapped ammunition, but it's funny. You got his face, he's swinging his arms. He feels big and tanky. It feels more interesting versus Metal Gear Solid here, where it's a guy walking. It's what you'd expect. He's pretty weighed down by the stuff. It's not a bad animation, but it's not exaggerated to nearly the same extent. If you're thinking about animation as cartoon, If you're thinking about an animation as cartoony, it's probably just employing a lot of exaggeration. How much you push the exaggeration in action should be considered based on the style you're actually going for. Think of it like a scale of Call of Duty to Mario. If you're in Call of Duty and he's doing this, you wouldn't want that. These are both skeletons, but this one feels more like he belongs in Mario Party. This one feels like he doesn't belong within 200 grains of a school. All right. Another important aspect of exaggeration is actually in the design of the character, not even just their movement, but what they look like. The features that you choose to emphasize in the design of your character can limit their posability in certain ways, or it can make it easier for them to hit dynamic and interesting poses. I think a really interesting one is Sonic the Hedgehog. He's got these really giant hands and feet, big white gloves, big red shoes, huge blue head, and that can kind of make it difficult to actually make him not look goofy in story scenes. He kind of looks like he's walking around in a mascot costume. A lot of this is down to Sega using motion tracking and not actually animating their characters, but I digress. It looks weird. But in gameplay, the giant wedge feet and the huge, like, hands flying all over the place are actually really useful because he's moving so fast that, you know, if he just needs to be a blur, you can always tell where he is in the level because he's this big blue or red or white thing that stands out against just about any background. So think about that when designing your characters. What does your character actually need to do? And what body parts or like scaling and all of that can I give them that will make it easier for them to do that? Here's some more doodly stuff. This is, we won't get much into motion capture in this, I don't think. Do we do any motion capture stuff on animation too?
So motion capture is a topic that Professor Lawrence is exploring a course for, like an entire course for.
That'd be really cool.
We're not going to do any mocap this semester, but there are more courses coming on mocap if the topic interests you.
And I believe there is stuff in the Dudersat somewhere in the basement. Like there's actual motion cap, or no, it's not in the Dudersat. It's in the Art and Architecture building. You can book time with a motion capture studio because you're a student. This stuff costs thousands of dollars, but if you want to try it, it's free for you right now.
Yeah. There's a big film and mocap studio, like right down the hall if you exit these doors. Film studio. There's a tiny motion capture studio right there through these double doors. The people who use it tend to use one of the kind of cheaper suits that you can just quickly put on and get some decent quality mocap data. But yeah, it's going to be a future course for sure.
That's very cool. I really wish I'd known that was there while I was a student. I didn't use it. I kind of feel bad now. That's okay. Use it while you're here. So actions need to be larger than life to read well. This is why mocap can sometimes lead to things looking weird. Here's Doodly. Here's Doodly.
And this is actually one of the main reasons that motion capture can look really stiff when applied to cartoon characters. Because cartoon animation tend to break a lot of those rules, including bending forms and among many other reasons that motion capture when applied to cartoon characters looks kind of change. By the way,
yeah. If you remember the Polar Express, that's why everything looks like just a little bit bad. It's a good movie, but it's a little bad. Questions on exaggeration. Again, like when you're watching animation, if something looks good and you're like, wow, that looked great, I'm going to go back 5 seconds to watch it again, chances are it's employing a lot of exaggeration. See how they're doing it. A lot of it's just down to feel. Let's talk about solid drawing. Our quote for this one: you should learn to draw as well as possible before starting to animate. Drawing is giving a performance. An artist is an actor who is not limited by their body, only by their ability and perhaps experience. We've also seen with the reference footage that, yeah, an animator is also an actor. The more that you are able to actually act out your stuff for yourself to watch and then base your animations off of, the more interesting your animation acting is going to be. I mean, even think of that Medusa footage. Like, yeah, it's good footage of a person running through the woods, but what really makes that footage is the expression on Medusa's face. That's what makes it so appealing to me, at least. This is not actually specifically talking about the quality of your drawing skills necessarily. Definitely worth learning to draw for this. It's not as hard as a lot of people think. Take a quick drawing course, and you will be able to make a lot of progress in a very short amount of time, and it will help with all of your animation stuff, even 3D. But you could also think about this as rigging and blending, or actually modeling. You have to do that well. You have to make a good rig before you can animate well. And you're kind of limited by what your rig is able to do. So there's kind of that. But more so, this is thinking about posing. If your individual poses on a frame-by-frame frame-by-frame basis aren't really interesting, your animation won't be either. You may think this is important for 3D animation, and kind of, it's like a third of it's not really that useful anymore. The original Disney animators emphasized the 3 aspects of weight, depth, and balance in their drawings, which specifically referred to like getting these principles out of a 2D drawing explicitly. Depth, we get that one for free. We don't really have to worry about that one. But weight is all about posing. It's not about just like, does the character physically exist? It's, are they putting their weight in an interesting place? If I'm standing like this, it kind of looks unnatural. It doesn't really look great. I realistically put my weight a little bit in my hips. It's a little bit back. My knees are bent a little bit most of the time to keep from walking up. My shoulders are a little bit back, and I slouch. That's weight. And balance, that's very important for just making a visually dynamic image, specifically because of twinning. Watch out for twins in general. Not the people twins, most of them are very nice, but specifically when you have a symmetrical character and the different sides of the character are doing the same thing, it's called twinning. And it can often make your characters feel like, I mean, they illustrate it right here, like cardboard cutouts. Makes them feel like they're advertising, like they're trying to sell you something. It feels fake. It doesn't feel good. Trying to go for a more dynamic pose where you can kind of get out of that symmetry will feel better on a lot of things. If you want to make a very uncanny character, go for twinning. That's a way to do it. But oftentimes we want to avoid it. To make your character feel fake, robotic, it's off-putting. Very rarely is your pose completely symmetrical if you want to go for an interesting image. Asymmetry and weight distribution are the name of the game here. Again, get reference footage. See how people actually stand. See how, if you're animating a weird, like, quadrupedal dog thing, get on all fours and do the move. I promise no one needs to see the footage and it will make it look better. I guess that's all I have for solid drawing. Anything about that? All right. I do really recommend learning how to draw in general. It's helpful. If you already know how to do it, you'll be better at 3D modeling. And no one is like unable to draw. I promise it might be harder for you. You might not have done it as much as a kid, but everyone can draw. I swear. Our last principle, appeal. Our quote, your eye is drawn to the figure that has appeal. And once there, it is held while you appreciate what you are seeing. This final principle, it's pretty much all about character design. Technically, like people will say when analyzing animation, oh, this has appeal. That's kind of the end-all be-all crux of like, I can't describe why this looks good, but I like it. Don't use it that way. It's not as interesting in the conversation. The original animators likened an animated character's appeal to a live actor's charisma. Now, this isn't saying they have to be traditionally attractive. It's not about the specific like look of their face. It's about how they can use that. For instance, I like watch Gravity Falls. I like seeing in character Bibles. You can look these up for a lot of shows. How a character goes through the design process to reach a final point where they can be the most interesting. Like this dipper and this dipper don't really look that meaningfully different. Like the eyes are a little bigger here. The eyebrows are a little bit more expressive. The mouth comes up a little bit more. The nose goes down. A little slouchier, bigger head. Feels a little more awkward. But if you've watched Gravity Falls, you'll know why him feeling a little awkward, him feeling a little misshapen, a little bit out of place, helps the character. It makes the show a little bit better. Small differences, but it makes a difference. I mean, I can barely see the difference between these two, but people liked the second one better. So I guess they made the right choice. And then for like this king, if you think about like royalty, you think like, oh, the fat cats, they're rich, they're like all full of themselves. Well, this guy is more interesting when he's literally full of himself. When he's a balloon head. Kind of tells us that this king's probably a little stupid. It's more interesting, more appealing. To walk you through appeal, it's maybe self-aggrandizing, but it's the best that I can give you. Creating character designs is a finicky skill. It's not super easy to teach, so I'm just going to kind of walk you through what I did when I was creating these guys. Now, these are not the most appealing characters in the world. I would change a lot about them today, but I'm kind of stuck with them. But I want to walk you through how I got to where I did get with them. Let's follow that. All right. So I did not save nearly enough of the drawings that I made for these guys, but I kind of worked my way up to this final design from just like the basic what they need to be able to do. In the game, they are garbage collecting robots. They need to be able to navigate, pick up trash, all of that. Because the game was going to be a 3D platform, I wanted them to be able to jump, so they needed to have legs. For the first thing, they should probably have arms or some sort of appendage to be able to carry all the trash. And then to accommodate for the desire to have 2D cutscenes, I really wanted them to be easy to draw, because I was going to draw them a whole lot. Separately, I didn't list this in the slide, but I also wanted to be able to use mix-and-mode animations, because this is literally the first thing I made in Blender, and I did not animate it. I could not have done that from scratch to nearly the effect that I needed to do it for them to be walking, running, jumping, all of that. I made them compatible with a 2D animation rig. I changed a couple of things about the animations themselves, but like I was able to base it on humanoid animations that I got from the internet. Once the design was settled on that had promise, I started on animation tests, and I did these in 2D first and foremost, just to kind of get a feel for them. I knew knowing the character needed to be able to move helped inform the kind of rig and the model that I was going to use for them. I kind of wanted these guys to feel a little bit like toddlers, like they're just kind of toddling around. They're a little goofy. You like kind of want to kick them to see what happens, but you also really don't want to kick them because they're cute. And so I knew in these early animations, and this I literally just kind of drew on my tablet while my friend was in surgery. Like this was just, when you have free time, kind of do it. It's not meant to be a good animation. It's just kind of meant to feel out the process. I knew that to kind of make them feel a little off balance, a little goofy, I wanted when they were running to have them like swing their arms all the way out there because they're kind of off balance. They're very small. And yeah, these animations just tests, not good, not meant to be like in the final product, but they told me who these characters were. You can skip this step. Again, it was very helpful for me. And it told me what kind of rig I wanted. Once I decided on design, reference images are great. If you've largely been just kind of box modeling and just kind of riffing in Blender, that's cool. That works really well. If you're working off a pre-established character design, I cannot recommend enough having your front, side, and top poses. It made getting this character as consistent as I wanted them to look with the 2D drawings much, much easier. I think I just slapped a bunch of pieces together in like Adobe Illustrator, pretty much. And I'm not good at Illustrator. Reference images are hugely important for facilitating a consistent transfer from 2D concept art to 3D character. Again, if your character started 3D, don't bother with this. But if you like drawing out your characters ahead of time, give them a T-pose. It's super useful. I did not get nearly enough footage of the modeling process as I would have liked, but you can see especially texturing, took a while to get right. Getting their eye animations where I wanted them to be, getting the lighting where I wanted it to be to make them feel how I wanted them to feel took a while. But I'm pretty proud of how they look at the end. I think the results speak for themselves. Again, not the most appealing characters in the world, but I think they're pretty cool. This is why we learned to 3D model our own characters. So if any of you are taking 494 after this, your game is going to look better. A good character design also does more than just tell the story or facilitate gameplay. If you're creating an IP, if you're creating something that you want to bring into the future, it can become the symbol of your game's marketing. It can be something that brings people's eye to it. So choose interesting colors, choose interesting aspects of the design that maybe people haven't seen before. Not a lot of room for originality in this world, but there is some. These guys aren't original. I mean, they're just red and blue Eve from WALL-E with arms. But they drew people's eye towards my game. And it worked. Yeah. So yeah, there's all that. Any questions on appeal? By the way, am I allowed to plug something?
Of course.
Heck yeah. I'm going to put a link in the Discord after this. My game, Pick It Up, is currently in a competition for potentially receiving a lot of funding. It is kind of a weird voting process. I wish I could just send you to the game and have you vote for the game, but it's not really that. It's in a thing called Blue Ocean Games. It's a big sort of contest between 400 games total. And if you sign up on the voting thing, you can see a whole bunch of up-and-coming games that they'll play the trailer for you, and you can sort of say, I think this will be top 10, I think this will be top 50, I think this will be below top 50. And if you go on there with the link and you happen to see Pick It Up in the voting, put me in top 10. That'd be really cool. I could actually make this game real, and then it would be like It Takes Two. So, yeah.
How many downloads you got so far?
We hit 2,200 yesterday.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, yeah. And if you want to play the game, it's linked in the slides as well. I think it's fun. It'll be better when I actually get money to make it. Yeah. Just sort of as a recap, this video was posted 10 years ago, and it still covers everything that I just did in 2.5 minutes. So I'm going to play it in its entirety. I think it's really interesting. It does it all with the square.
The following has been paraphrased from The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Al Johnston. Squash and stretch. This action gives the illusion of weight and volume to a character as it moves. Anticipation. Prepares the audience for a major action the character is about to perform. Each major action is preceded with specifics that anticipate the audience what is about to happen. Staging. It's the presentation of an idea so that it is clear. Straight ahead and pose to pose. Pose to pose is charted with key drawings done at intervals throughout the scene. Straight ahead animation starts at the first drawing and works drawing to the end of the scene. Follow through and overlap. When the main body of the character stops, all other parts continue to catch up to the mass. Nothing stops all at once. Slow in and slow out. As the action starts, we have more drawings near the starting pose, one or two in the middle, and more drawings near the next pose. Fewer drawings make the action faster, and more drawings make the action slower. Arcs. All actions, with few exceptions, follow an arc or slightly circular path. Arcs give animation a more natural action and better flow. Secondary action. It's an additional action in the scene used as a supplement of the main one in order to reinforce it and add dimension. Timing. More drawings between poses slow and smooth the action. Fewer drawings make the action faster and crisper. Timing maintains the appearance of an object abiding by the laws of physics. Exaggeration. Remain true to reality, just presenting it in a more extreme form. Solid drawings. It means taking into account forms in three-dimensional space, giving them volume and weight. Appeal. It's a quality of charm, able to please the viewer's eyes. It's the charisma of the action.
Yeah, it's just decoration. Go here. Final thing. There's also, I'm not going to show this whole thing because it's like 30 minutes long, but I showed clips of it. Watch Alan Becker's whole video on the 12 principles of animation. It goes into a lot more detail than I could with a lot better examples. It is all 2D animated, but it's really good. Yeah, that's all I have for you.
Thank you, Evan. So, a reminder, this isn't really an art course. This is not the kind of thing that I can really teach effectively. I'm an engineer by trade. But this is the kind of thing that if you start trying to slip some of these principles into your animations, they will dramatically improve in their appeal. They will be much more interesting. They will pop out of that Discord channel as we scroll through and look at them all, okay? But this is not the kind of thing that you're going to need to do in this course to get the points, okay? It's just not the kind of course this is. There are other courses that focus on animation in experimental forms, stop-motion animation, traditional 2D animation, the kind of stuff that you saw a lot of in this presentation. And those courses, most of them I think are done through stamps. They tend to have kind of smaller capacities, right? Usually around 20 people maximum. But if you get the chance, take those courses after you've taken this course. It might help you improve the way that you 3D model as well. Okay. There are also interesting structures and objects that you haven't really experimented with, like the lattice modifier and lattice object, that give you a lot of power, even in 3D, over kind of squishing and squashing your objects, your characters, the kind of stuff that can give a little bit more of that cartoony feel to an otherwise rigid 3D mesh. Okay. So, everyone, I think that is all that we have for you today. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I'll be around for the next hour or so, probably about 70 minutes. Today's daily model is a cupcake, so I wish you luck if you're doing the daily model. Otherwise, if you can get started on this homework 6, at least look through it, size it up. That would be a good idea. Okay, because some of these problems might take you quite a bit of time, others maybe not so much. Do not be blindsided by the fact there's only 6 problems because they could be quite difficult if you get to Sunday. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you for I think one final lecture with Evan on Wednesday. Okay, see you then. Everyone online, see you then. Take care.
Come back to that one because that's it's a big call and response one. We're going to use these and talk about cool animation. So.